Chapter 11. The Myth of Moderation. The classical theory that fat is deposited in adipose tissue, aka body fat, only when given in excess of the caloric requirements, is finally disproved. Ernst Wertheimer in Physiological Reviews. The final myth complicating our lives and destroying our health is the idea that calories are the most important consideration in our food choices, so we can eat anything we'd like as long as we don't eat too many calories. So here's our third calorie myth. Calorie myth 3. Everything is fine in moderation. Most diets suggest that you can eat whatever you want and be fine as long as you monitor your portion sizes and don't eat too many calories, aka count calories. But as we've discussed, calories are not all that matter. What comes along with calories can disrupt your fundamental biology for generations. So, why do you hear so much about calories and eating everything in moderation? One reason is that many institutions perpetuating this myth are funded by companies that produce processed foods. These institutions can keep their corporate benefactors happy and appear reasonable by preaching a message of moderation. The foods aren't bad, your willpower is. It's your personal responsibility to resist them. Now, anyone can sell anything and everyone is happy, except for the consumers whose biology is being broken. New heading. Why hormones matter more than moderation. When you're told to focus on calories and moderation instead of food and biology, healthy quickly becomes a highly relative term. For example, a popular fast food chain celebrates the health benefits of its offerings that contain less than 400 calories. And this will make your calorie counting app happy, but is that really helpful? Never mind the high fructose corn syrup, refined flour, trans fats, and pink slime in these edible products we collectively refer to as food. They're low calorie and therefore smart choices. We know this is absurd. We know that the nutritional and hormonal impact of calories matters immensely, but we can see why the conventional calorie counting craze is perpetuated. Want to sell anything and call it healthy? Convince people that calories are all that matter and that health is about counting calories. Then mix together the cheapest and most shelf-stable ingredients you can find and call it food. Finally, shrink the serving size until you can call it low calorie and therefore healthy. 100 calorie healthy snack packs for everyone. Misguided recommendations around moderation are not new. Just a few decades ago, we were given a message of smoking in moderation, but then the science linking smoking to addiction and disease became clear. The link between insane foods, addiction, and disease is now clear. As Yale University's Kelly Brownell puts it, by 1964, there was sufficient scientific evidence, but many years passed and many millions died before decisive action was taken to turn the tide against smoking. Repeating this history with food and obesity would be tragic. Will a single soda or candy bar every once in a while kill us? Of course not. But neither will a single cigarette every once in a while. The question is what we should be recommending. A message of moderation and calories is rooted in money, not science nor common sense. Accurate recommendations would revolve around food quality and hormones, not calorie counting and moderation. New heading. The simple science of hormones. At the risk of being a little gruesome, I'd suggest putting down your fork if you're listening to this book while eating a sane meal. Let's look at one way scientists discovered the important relationship between hormones and health through a procedure known as parabiosis. Parabiosis occurs when researchers, now bear with me, cut two live animals open and then join them so they share the same blood supply and hormones. In other words, researchers create conjoined twins. Now, I'm not endorsing this, just communicating the science. Why would researchers create a Franken rat with one set of hormones but twice as much of everything else? Because it allows them to investigate the impact of hormones on human health. For example, when researchers join an obese rat to a lean rat, the lean rat gets leaner regardless of the quantity of calories it eats. How is that possible? Think back to how your set point works. The obese rat is producing a massive amount of body fat burning hormones in an effort to get itself back to a normal level of body fat. But because the obese rat is clogged and cannot respond to the body fat burning hormones effectively, it stays heavy. However, the lean rat is not clogged. The lean and clog free rat is able to respond to all of those body fat burning hormones and does. Lots of body fat burning hormones plus the ability to respond to them equals a lean rat burning body fat despite eating the same quantity of calories and having no other biological need to. Similarly, when researchers stitch a normal rat and a starved rat together, the starved rat's body fat storing hormones make the normal rat get fatter without it eating any more calories. The starved rat is producing body fat storing hormones in an effort to get back to its set point. These body fat storing hormones enter the normal rat, and it does exactly what these hormones tell it to do, independent of calorie quantity. The normal rat stores body fat without eating any more or exercising any less. Besides the horror of joining living animals together, these studies powerfully demonstrate how any message regarding eating or exercise that doesn't involve hormones is at best incomplete. And that is only the tip of the scientific iceberg. Researchers at the Veterans Affairs Palo Alto healthcare system genetically altered mice so they would no longer have the primary enzyme responsible for storing body fat, hormone-sensitive lipase. These mice ate more and gained 70% less than normal mice. In the researchers' words, completely independent of calories, altering mice's hormones caused a dramatic reduction in lipogenesis, or body fat creation. Other researchers genetically altered mice hormone levels so that the mice stayed lean in spite of a reduction of physical activity and were, in the researchers' words, unaffected by caloric intake. Researcher Peter Havel from the University of California tells us that mice which are unable to produce ASP, a hormone involved in the formation of body fat, consume 30% more food than wild mice, yet have reduced adipose body fat mass and are resistant to weight gain. These and hundreds of other experiments show that hormones are the key to our set point and therefore long-term weight gain or weight loss. The journal Neuroscience and Behavioral Reviews captures the importance of healing our hormones before we will ever be permanently free of body fat. Humans that become obese gain weight because they are no longer able to lose weight. We gain weight because our metabolic system is hormonally broken. Starving a broken system will never fix it, and there's a good chance it will make it worse. Starvation isn't healthy. We fix this problem by understanding and healing our hormones. New heading: How hormones influence your set point. Your digestive system, muscle tissue, and fat tissue are constantly communicating with your nervous system and brain via hormones. Figuratively, they are talking about how much fuel they think we need to keep us at our set point. If they think we're at risk of rising above our set point, they automatically decrease our calories in and increase our calories out, and vice versa. When we eat high quality, sane calories, this conversation goes well. Higher quality calories trigger body fat burning hormones. The right amount of hormones are used, and the right message is communicated: burn body fat. However, when we eat insane low quality calories, communication breaks down. Our body doesn't have a good idea of how much fuel we need, hormones become dysregulated, and our body demands more food since it doesn't know what's going on and errs on the side of not starving. Thanks to this communication breakdown, we overeat, become hormonally clogged, and gain weight. You can count calories all day and will not set yourself up for long-term fat loss if you're eating low-quality, insane calories that trigger excess body fat storing hormones such as insulin. Known in scientific circles as the most important hormonal factor influencing body fat creation, insulin is activated only when we need to get fuel into our cells. Your body hears insulin in the bloodstream communicating that you have energy on the way to your cells and therefore do not need to burn any stored energy. So the hormone insulin, not the calories you eat, blocks the burning of body fat. Calories from unnatural, insane starches and sweets trigger the release of unnatural and ridiculous amounts of insulin. All that insulin gets those calories into your cells, but then you still have insulin left over in your bloodstream. That excess insulin clogs you up and removes your ability to burn body fat no matter how much time you're forced to spend on a treadmill. Things go from bad to worse if we keep this up for too long. Not only does all the excess insulin destroy our ability to burn body fat, it also makes the body resistant to insulin, meaning that your pancreas has to produce more insulin to do the same job. To quickly understand how this works, think about this analogy. Becoming resistant to the effects of insulin is like becoming resistant to the effects of alcohol. When people drink a sane amount of alcohol, everything is fine. It takes relatively little alcohol to generate the desired effect, so people don't drink too much of it. However, if people drink too much alcohol, they become resistant to alcohol's effects, and they have to drink more and more to get a buzz. This volume of alcohol eventually destroys their liver and makes them sick. Similarly, when people eat mostly sane foods, everything is fine. It takes just a little insulin to get energy into cells so the body doesn't produce too much of it. If our insulin levels remain low, we don't gain weight, even when we eat large amounts of food. Instead of being stored as fat, extra blood sugar increasing calories are burned off or eventually exit the body as waste. But if people eat a significant amount of starch and sweets, their bodies become resistant to insulin's effects. At that point, the body has to produce more insulin to get energy into cells. This volume of insulin eventually destroys their pancreas and makes them sick. Insulin resistance is becoming an epidemic in our country. At least 1 in 4 Americans are insulin resistant. All this excess insulin forms the backbone of our hormonal clog and causes our set point to creep up. It also increases the rate at which we store body fat because excess insulin preferentially puts calories into our fat tissue. No matter how resistant other tissues become to insulin, our fat tissue is always receptive. And while that is technically good because it keeps insulin resistance from killing us, that is, it prevents toxically high levels of blood sugar, it can be frustrating because it prevents us from losing weight. We end up with more body fat and no ability to burn it. Once most of the calories we eat are being stored in fat cells because insulin cannot get them into other cells, a condition known as internal starvation has set in. We eat plenty of food, but starve on the inside because insulin cannot effectively get energy into any cells other than our fat cells. With excess insulin shuttling most calories into fat tissue and eliminating our ability to burn body fat, your body has no choice but to slow down, burn muscle tissue, and demand more food. New heading: The actual cause of obesity. Meet Terry. Terry is internally starving and needs 500 calories of energy. Terry is also a yo-yo dieter and has already slowed her metabolism and burned as much muscle as she can. Needing some calories, Terry eats a 500-calorie meal. Instead of those 500 calories getting into the organs needing it, only 250 make it in, while the other 250 are ignored thanks to insulin resistance and are stored as new body fat. Terry still needs 250 calories. She can't slow down anymore. She can't burn any more muscle. And thanks to all the excess insulin floating around, she does not have the ability to burn body fat. What is her only option? Overeat. Eat 250 extra calories. So Terry snacks on an additional 250 calories to keep her cells from starving. But now only some of those 250 calories make it into the cells needing them, while the rest are stored as body fat. Again, she must overeat even more. This process of overeating to keep a clogged body fueled repeats itself until Terry eats 1,000 calories to meet her need for only 500 calories. Terry's body is essentially leaking calories into her fat cells and has to compensate by taking in extra calories. Continue this overeat to compensate for a hormonal clog cycle day after day, and Terry gains body fat. On the surface, it seems that she's gaining body fat because she's eating too many calories. But Terry's high consumption of calories is not the cause of her weight gain. It's a symptom of the hormonal clog caused by insane low-quality calories. Obesity is not caused by eating too many calories, and it's not cured by eating fewer calories. Overeating is not the cause of obesity, report Baylor University researchers. It is a symptom of an underlying disturbance. The changes in weight regulation and fat storage are the essential disturbances. Problems are not solved by treating symptoms. This is why calorie counting and any application that helps you do it or program that helps you live it will fail you more than 95% of the time. Basing your diet on calorie counting is like taking a medication that treats the symptoms of an illness but doesn't cure the underlying cause. You can monitor your body all you want by tracking calories in versus calories out. But if you're not eating delicious, whole, sane foods that fuel your biological processes and help to regulate your hormones, you will never cure your body. New section. Now that we've walked through each of the calorie myths, I want to spend a little time talking about how these myths were created in the first place, and why you haven't heard about this science until now. Sadly, financial motivation is part of the answer. More money can be made off of sick, overweight, and unhappy people than off of healthy, fit, and happy people. The bigger we are, the bigger the profits of the $3.1 trillion food industry, $150 billion fitness industry, and $500 billion pharmaceutical industry. Big food, big fitness, and big pharma want us to stay slim the way big tobacco wants us to stop smoking. They don't. And you can't believe everything you hear, especially if it's coming from a person or organization whose profits depend on your continued weight and health struggles. As Sunny Professor Jeffrey M. Friedman explains, why has the scientific evidence from long-standing obesity research not found its way into the minds of the public? Perhaps it is because these views are shaped by a constant barrage of advertisements from the diet industry, which has a multi-billion-dollar interest in promoting the view that weight can be controlled through willpower alone. Sidebar: Type 2 diabetes. Protect yourself and your children. Type 2 diabetes is like running water into a hormonally clogged sink for so long that water overflows all over the place and the faucet breaks down. Once so much insulin is produced that it's overflowing into our bloodstream and our ability to produce insulin has broken down, we develop type 2 diabetes. This buildup and breakdown causes potentially lethal havoc in the body. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention estimate that people diagnosed with diabetes by the age of 40 die 12 years sooner if they're male and 14 years sooner if they're female. You can only imagine the years lost for children who are saturated with insane starches and sweets. Type 2 diabetes is terrible. And what's even worse is its disturbing growth. In the late 1800s, only 1 in every 4,000 people was diabetic. Today, 1 in every 4 people are diabetic or pre-diabetic. That's a 100,000% increase in 1 century. And researchers estimate that we are on our way to a third of men and nearly half of women in the United States becoming type 2 diabetic. But the worst is yet to come. Exposure to a diabetic and hormonally clogged environment in utero will impair a baby's ability to regulate the set point related hormones, insulin, and leptin, while permanently adding fat cells to his or her body and increasing the child's vulnerability to obesity, diabetes, and heart disease over the course of a lifetime. These findings are most compellingly demonstrated in studies where researchers look at siblings of whom one was born before a mother became hormonally clogged and the other was born after. This setup holds genetics constant and helps researchers to limit the variables. Related studies in animals are equally scary. When pregnant animals are fed insane foods, the genetic expression of their offspring is altered and causes the offspring to crave starches and sweets more than their parents do. We are faced with the first generation with a lower life expectancy than their parents. About 1 in 3 American children are overweight or obese, and more than 40 million children under the age of 5 are overweight thanks in part to their exposure to hormonal havoc, elevated set points, and insane cravings before they were even born. As University of Colorado's Associate Dean for Faculty, Diana DeBella, MD, PhD, puts it, the effect of maternal diabetes may be viewed as a vicious cycle. Children whose mothers had diabetes during pregnancy are at increased risk of becoming obese and developing diabetes at young ages. Many of these female offspring already have diabetes or abnormal glucose tolerance by the time they reach their childbearing years, thus perpetuating the cycle. As alarming as this picture is, we still have plenty to be hopeful about. Remember Christina's story? A series of more encouraging studies show that the vast majority of type 2 diabetics can reduce or completely eliminate their need for medication by going sane while significantly reversing insulin resistance through smarter exercise.